Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending our presentation. I'm going to talk about how to use the transformative learning as a framework to design a mock workshop on poverty. So poverty is a global issue that has been studied broadly. People live in poverty, have low income, and they are unable to get the basic goods and service necessary for survival. Many people have a preconception of poverty. They're not very sensitive to the issue of poverty. They often associate people in poverty with a negative image, and they are unaware of the social and economic factors which led to poverty. So therefore, the purpose of this study is to create a mock learning workshop to transform people's assumptions on poverty with the transformative learning as a framework. So transformative learning has been extensively studied. In this project, we focus on how to use the transformative learning to design a workshop on poverty. And specifically, we focus on 4 components, and such as engaging in experience, critical reflection, reflective discourse, and action taken. We utilize these 4 components in our design. So transformative learning happens when our original assumptions are in conflict with new experience. Our previous experience cannot explain what have happened. We are easy to be in emotional turbulence, and we are consciously or unconsciously look for the alternate viewpoints to understand such experience. Emotional turbulence is a starting point which leads learners to challenge their original assumptions or the false social assumptions. When we don't have such experience, we create a conflict space for people to experience such emotional turbulence. So transformative learning is to transform our beliefs, our attitude, or transform people's entire perspective. Assumptions, what is assumptions? Assumptions in simple words means that we assume things to be true without proofs. Such assumptions are developed based upon our previous experience, our living conditions, our educational background, etc. Such a previous experience or factors serve as filters for us to judge the incoming experience. We use them to screen and interpret the new experience. Many times we assume things without reasoning. Such assumptions are embedded in the perimeters of our own world. Therefore, such assumptions many times are constrained by our previous experience. From this figure, we can see that our bigger belief system and our smaller unit of meaning perspectives, they as a whole assumption system impact how we interpret certain things, how we make judgments of certain things, and how we take actions. We can change either of them in order to transform the assumptions. So there are 2 approaches of transformative learning. One focus on individual transformation and another focus on social transformation. So the individual transformation is to transforming the assumptions that are rooted in our experience, education, and cultural heritage. Social transformative learning is to identify the social factors or the key structures that constrain our thinking, such as those factors include the social systems, organizational process, and institutional dynamics, rules, regulations, and the traditions of customers. So critical reflection is a tool for us to critically reflect on all of the factors which might help us form the false assumptions. Through critical reflection, we reveal the upper level social system, such as the policy, ideology, culture, social system, and how they have impact our thinking and our actions. We can also analyze the media level systems such as our surroundings, our school systems, our family history, our educational background, etc. Those factors contribute to our individual values and beliefs and some assumptions. And by analyzing these factors, we try to find out who we are, where we are from, and how our value and beliefs are formed, and how these value and beliefs impact our rationale of our thinking, and how did this social system impact our thinking and our actions, and what actions we need to take in order to break such old constraints. Critical discourse analysis is also one of the components we will use in designing the transformative learning workshop. Discourse, what is the meaning of discourse? Discourse in simple words is a politically inclined language framed to achieve certain purpose. Critical discourse analysis is a methodology employed to evaluate the meaning that language conveys. It studies how power operates to achieve its goals through discourse such as text, talks, videos, and it reveals the real-world relationships through the analysis of a discourse. By analyzing discourse practice, the forms, the structures, and content of the discourse, and certain events and texts, and how these practices are affected by power relationships. And discourse analysis identifies the whole social structure and relationships. Through discourse analysis, we're trying to find out how powerful parties can influence people's assumptions through manipulating and framing a specific discourse, and guide people to do things within the framework of such discourse. For example, in the media, a large number of discourses are edited with negative or positive words and are associated with a negative or positive image to achieve the results desired by the powerful people, such as associating people in poverty with crime, violence, and conflict to highlight the mainstream values. Through practicing critical analysis, we can also learn how powerful parties can influence how discourses are represented, how they modify the language and words to make the same events presented in a completely different manner. This, of course, we can observe very clearly in the media report, for example, in political speeches. So based on the above theoretical ideas of transformative learning, we will design the transformative learning workshop on poverty. Through this workshop, we expect to achieve the following goals: to increase the learners' awareness on poverty, to challenge their pre-perceptions on poverty, and to develop and expand an understanding of how poverty is interpreted and formed socially, culturally, and politically, and to gain the information and resources and take actions and take plans into actions. So here's a snapshot of how 4 components of transformative learning are applied in the workshop. The first component is to create a conflict space for learners to have the dramatic experience by immersing themselves in a totally different community for 2 weeks, so that they can experience the poverty issues. And learners will reflect on their perception on poverty and engage in the discussions on poverty from the social, cultural, and political level with stakeholders in the community. They will exercise a critical discourse analysis by locating the posts which discuss the poverty issues in social media. They will analyze the text and find out the factors contributing to poverty and factors behind the poverty. And finally, they will discuss with the stakeholders in the community and make plans for actions. So here, I put all this design into a table. And from the following tables, you can see the strategies and activities used on different components, on the different components, and the details of how these activities are implemented in practice. So the first component is to create the conflict space for learners to experience the disorienting dilemma experience. So specifically, learners from economically disadvantaged and wealthy districts, they switch schools for 2 weeks and experience a different life. And the learners will listen to the stories and experience of the local students and learn about their various challenges that the students are facing. Learners from the switch will share their experience together. They engage in discussions about their experience in these different communities or different school systems. And learners will compare their experiences and knowledge during the facilitated group activities. Such comparison enables learners to see the emotional turbulence and the change in their assumptions in poverty. So at the right side of the table, you can see that you can see the details of how learners document their experience and how they share their experiences. During the switch, learners document their experience by creating a diary and record their daily activities and feelings and thoughts on poverty in the new environment. They share their experience and discuss the poverty issues based on the following questions. For example, what are the things that you have never realized before you attend such activity? And this is for learners to recognize, elaborate, and reflect on unconsciousness and make them conscious. And then another question is, what were your assumptions about poverty before you visited the new community? And what are your assumptions about poverty after you visited the switch school? And what have changed after this activity? Why? What caused such change? And what are the significant experiences that have had a big impact on you? How? So the second component is to conduct a critical assessment of assumptions on poverty from the macro level perspective. This training session will include a speaker series where learners will engage with experience and stories from the members of rich or poor school communities. Learners will engage in discussion-based learning in order to hear the stories that they have never experienced before. Here are some major activities. Learners will visit a neighborhood school district's board meeting that has a different social-economic status from their own. They will engage in dialogue with the board members about various perspectives about poverty from the social, cultural, and political perspectives. They will watch BBC World Debate on the factors which contribute to poverty to expand their worldviews on poverty. And instructors invite the leaders of the political organization to share their behind-the-scenes experience and their stories in their work, and they use examples to show how power works in practice. And they share the resources and possible opportunities and relationships and networks in the community. So all of this series, the speaker series and videos and discussions, they will help learners broaden their horizons on poverty issues and will be expected to influence their assumptions on poverty. So here are some guiding questions for such activity. And for example, what have you learned by talking to the community members? What are the social, cultural, and political factors which constrain the minds of the populace and cause poverty? And what do we need to do from the social, cultural, and political level in order to deal with the poverty issues? So all these activities can help us to identify the factors and forces in a social and cultural context which constrain our thinking and identify how they constrain our thinking. So the third component of a transformative learning workshop is to conduct a critical discourse analysis of the power perspectives shared in the social media. And learners will analyze the social media posts on poverty and discuss the meanings behind the posts. Learners will locate the resources on the topics of poverty from social media, which represent different political parties. So learners will read and analyze these comments below the post and categorize them based on their political approaches. They will find out the patterns of these words, identify the meanings reflected in these words, and how these words might influence people's assumptions. Based on the above investigation, learners will discuss the following question. For example, what political positions do the commenters stand for? And how do commenters fabricate the meanings through disguising the forms, structures, and contents of the post? Through this training process, learners are trained to be conscious about the complicated issues disguised through text, the true factors, and they can also find out the true factors which influence people's mind. So the final component is the acquisition of knowledge for further action. Learners will develop their knowledge base to explore and expand on their new understanding on poverty. This training workshop, this training session will ask learners to explore the knowledge and resources, expand their new insights, and to form their new understanding of poverty. Specifically, learners will summarize all the data based on the above activities and put a summary in a table. They will acquire more new resources on poverty from the websites. And they will consult with experts on poverty and ask for suggestions about how to make action plans. They will be guided by the questions below to collect the resources needed for action. For example, what have you learned about poverty? And what have constrained people's perspective on poverty? What further resources or knowledge do we need in order for us to understand poverty from the new horizon? So conclusion and implications. I put this conclusion and implications in the table. So based on what we have, the talk about above, we see the transformative learning is employed to change the assumptions and belief system in this study. So, however, not every experience is transformational. Instructors can create a dilemma environment and provoke the transformational experience of learners. And there are two approaches of transformative learning. One is individual transformation and another is a social transformation. This paper describes a mixture of both transformation. So the focus of this paper is to raise people's consciousness on poverty and take actions to change the system or structure which constrains people's assumptions regarding poverty. Or we change our assumptions which influenced by our surroundings. And to have the transformational experience, learners can switch their communities and live in poor or rich communities for 2 weeks to experience totally different environments. They can interact with the key stakeholders in the community to expose the different perspectives on poverty and the factors which contribute to the poverty. So the process of transforming the assumptions include a critical reflection on learners' experience, conducting the critical discourse analysis, especially analyze the posts from the media, the text from the media, from the online internet, and identify the factors contributing to the poverty. So learners can host the group reflections on the switched experience. They can skillfully invite stakeholders and policymakers and make plans with them about how to improve the situation. They can analyze the text on poverty on social media and find out the meanings behind this post. And they take actions for change. And learners can explore the resources, and they can expand upon their insights on poverty, and they can take actions to alleviate the poverty. And the learners can look for the resources on poverty on the internet. They can ask suggestions from experts and summarize the data collected. They can invite the stakeholders and the citizens and report all the findings in the community discipline hall so that the people can attend such meetings and they can involve in such discussions. So this is all for this presentation. The significance of this story is that we know that transformative learning has been studied, and we have a lot of literature review. We have a lot of research studies. However, this project demonstrates to the audience about how to use transformative learning as a framework to change people's assumptions, to increase people's awareness, not through the study of the transformative learning, but using transformative learning as a framework to design the activities. Hopefully, through such kind of activity, we can show the practitioners about how to design the activities to change people's mind. Such a study not only contribute to the poverty issues, it can also contribute to other social issues such as drug abuse. And so that's all for today's presentation. Thank you for attending our presentation. If you have questions, please let me know.